Good morning. Today we are going to discuss what do you mean by triggering in flip-flops. We have different number of flip-flops like J, K, G and D. Actually this G flip-flop and D flip-flop are variations of J and K. That means when those two J and K terminals are shorted, you get G flip-flop, and then in a D flip-flop, J and K are complements of each other. That you know already. Then we are going to discuss what is triggering in flip-flops. What do you mean by triggering? That means this flip-flop, this is a flip-flop, and this flip-flop is actually a memory element. This is a memory element. That means you have two outputs, Q and Q bar. That means whenever this clock is applied, depending on the input values of this J and K, that means this is J and this is K. That means whenever you are applying this clock, depending on the value of this J and K, this Q and Q bar will be set. That means Q and Q bar are complements of each other, and when if you want to change the output Q, then you have to set this J and K to some value and then apply the clock. And when that clock is applied, depending on J and K, the value of Q and Q bar, Q is whether it is changed or it is staying in the same state or it is complemented. That means either it is storing the previous value, that means previous value is storing the previous value, or it is set, reset or complements. So depending on the value of J and K, if J and K are 0 and 0, the previous value of Q is preserved, or that means there is no change for the output. And if it is J and K are 1 and 0, that will be set. That means this is the value of Q. And if this is 0 and 1, what will happen? That will be reset. And if it is 1 1, then whatever is the previous value of Q, that will be complemented. Okay. So that is the action of a flip flop. And now we are interested in triggering in flip flops. There are two types of flip flops. That is level triggered flip flop, level triggering, and edge triggering. Level triggering and edge triggering. That means in a level triggered flip flop, suppose that this is a clock pulse, and this is a positive clock. This is positive clock, and this is at a high voltage, and this will be at a lower voltage level, whereas this is at a high level and this is at a lower level. That means this is a positive pulse, and in this positive pulse, this is the positive pulse. Then from 0 to 1, that or from low voltage to high voltage, this transition is called positive edge. This is called level. That means this much portion. That means from here to here, that is called level, and this is the negative edge. Negative edge. So in a level triggering flip flop, this change, that means whether it has to store the previous value, whether it has to set a reset of complements, that is done when this clock is in the level. That means when this clock is at this level, that means when it is staying in this state, in this level, that change will happen. That means from the previous value of Q to the current value of Q, that transition happens when this clock is at this level. That means at this much period of time, that means this is the from this positive to negative edge, that is called level, and when that clock is at that level, that change will happen. That is called level triggering. And if it is positive edge triggering, that means this change, that means depending on the value of J and K, the value of Q either it remains in the same state, set, reset or complements. So these are the four different actions that can be done as far as a flip flop is concerned. Now that change is happening if you have a flip flop, if that change happen when this clock is at its positive edge. That means from here to here, this is called the positive edge of the clock pulse. That means that change will happen. That means this, depending on the value of J and K, some change will happen. Some change has to happen for the output of the flip flop. That change will happen when the clock is in this positive edge. That is called positive edge triggering. Positive edge triggering. And if that change happens during the negative edge, that this is the negative edge, and during the negative edge of the clock pulse, this is called negative edge triggering. Negative edge triggering. So as far as a flip flop is concerned, triggering means the expected output, or this flip flop is actually acting as a memory, and that means a single bit of information can be stored in a flip flop, and that is the output of this is Q. And if you want to change this flip flop, the content of the flip flop, some action has to be taken, and depending on the value of J and K, either it will store the previous value, either it will be set, reset or complements. Okay, so that is done during the clock pulse, and if that is happening during positive edge, then it is called positive edge triggering, and if it is happening on the negative edge of the clock pulse, it is called negative edge triggering. And if it is done in this level, that means when that level of that means this is the positive level, and during that level it is called level triggering flip flop. And that means you have mainly two types: level triggering and edge triggering. In edge triggering, you have two types: positive edge triggering as well as negative edge triggering. Now, suppose that you are given a flip flop, and how do you check whether it is flip flop, whether that flip flop is level triggered, edge triggered, or edge triggered? How do you detect it? In this picture here, this clock is given and nothing is shown here. That means this is level triggered. And suppose that in this diagram, if you have a signal like this, that is, if this is given like this is called this triangular notation that indicates that it is edge triggered, and this is positive edge triggered. This is positive, and suppose that you have another, this is edge triggered, and suppose that here you have a circle, or sorry, here you have a circle in the adjacent, just outside the triangle. This is called negative edge trigger. And that's all about triggering in flip flops. That means that change, that means depending on the value of J and K, or depending on T and T values, some change has to happen for the memory element, and that change will happen either during the positive edge, or during the negative edge, or during this level. And depending on when that change will happen, that is called triggering. And we have level triggered, edge triggered. We have level triggered as well as edge triggered flip flops. Edge triggering can be either on positive edge or negative edge. Okay. Thank you.